Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's explainer. I really want you to think of me right now, not just as a host, but, well, kind of like your personal, supportive coach sitting right across the table from you with a cup of coffee. Because today, we're going to tackle something that so many of us struggle with. It's that thing that totally drains your energy and leaves you feeling, just incredibly empty at the end of the day. Yep, we're talking about the deeply ingrained, completely exhausting habit of people-pleasing. We'll be looking at some absolutely profound insights from Brené Brown on what authenticity actually means, and honestly, we're going to completely flip how you think about fitting in.
So I want you to answer a question really honestly for yourself right now. Are you constantly reading the room? Think about it. When you walk into a meeting or a social gathering or, let's be real, even just a dinner with your own family, do you immediately start scanning the environment? It's like you're checking the emotional temperature, right? Looking for those tiny micro-expressions, trying to figure out exactly who you need to be in that specific moment just to fit in. Maybe you even find yourself morphing into a completely different person just to survive Thanksgiving dinner with your in-laws. It's literally like having a secondary radar spinning in your head at all times, making sure you don't step out of line or upset the unspoken dynamic. And man, that takes an incredible amount of mental and emotional energy.
Now, if that resonates with you, and I'm guessing it does for a lot of us, I want to completely validate that struggle. We do this to protect ourselves. We do it because, at our core, we desperately crave connection. But I have to deliver a tough, necessary truth here, straight from Brené Brown's research. When you do that, you are actually doing the exact opposite of belonging. I know, it sounds wild, but when you adapt and shift your personality just to please other people, you're actively destroying the very potential for that true connection you're looking for. You are essentially building a giant wall around your real self, but you're disguising it as a bridge.
Now, what's really interesting about this is what we call the chameleon illusion. It's this false belief that being a chameleon, seamlessly changing your colors to blend perfectly into whatever background you're standing against, is the secret path to true connection. We tell ourselves, okay, if I'm agreeable, if I'm exactly what they expect me to be, then they'll accept me, and finally I'll belong. But it's a complete illusion. Because think about it, if people only accept the chameleon version of you, they aren't actually connecting with you. They're connecting with a performance, and that performance actively blocks genuine relationships from ever taking root.
Let's take a closer look at what this trap actually looks like in practice. We call it the chameleon habit. First up, changing your personality depending on who you're with. Maybe you're the super quiet listener with one friend group, the ultra-aggressive go-getter at work, and then the perfectly agreeable neighbor who pretends to love a hobby you actually despise just to have something to talk about. But none of these roles feel quite right, do they? Second, making your primary goal ensuring people like you rather than expressing who you actually are. And third, making others comfortable, usually at your own expense. If you're recognizing yourself in any of these behaviors right now, I really want you to realize that you are actively sacrificing your own comfort and your own identity just to keep the peace.
So the core message we're unpacking today is simply this: stop trying to fit in. Seriously, it's making you miserable. I know firsthand the intense emotional exhaustion that comes with this habit. Treating your daily social interactions like some tightly scripted performance where you have to play the lead actor, the director, and the stagehand, it's incredibly heavy. When you spend your entire day managing other people's perceptions of you, you go home feeling utterly drained, lonely, and miserable, even if you are surrounded by people all day long. That misery, it comes from the profound disconnect between your inner truth and your outward actions.
And this brilliantly illustrates the stark, really profound contrast between fitting in and true belonging. Look, fitting in is basically an assessment of the situation and a modification of yourself. It explicitly requires you to change who you are to match the environment. But true belonging, it is entirely different. True belonging requires you to be exactly who you are. Let that sink in. You cannot have true belonging if you're modifying yourself to get it. One is this exhausting, never-ending hustle. The other is a state of deep, grounded peace. So, how in the world do we get to that grounded peace? Well, we have to reframe the entire concept. True belonging is not a social achievement. It's not some exclusive VIP club you get invited to, or a status you unlock by being perfectly agreeable to everyone. As the source material highlights, belonging is actually a spiritual practice. It's an internal, deeply personal commitment. It is the practice of belonging to yourself, first and foremost, before you ever try to belong to a group. And because it's a practice, that means it requires deliberate, day-by-day action. So here are the coaching steps to actually break that chameleon habit. Step 1. Stop reading the room. And yes, I know exactly how hard that radar is to turn off once it's spinning.
But you've got to catch yourself when you start scanning for expectations and consciously pull your focus right back to your own center. Step 2, never betray your own truth. We're going to dive way deeper into that one in just a second. And step 3, stand alone in exactly who you are. This means getting comfortable with the sheer discomfort of not blending in perfectly. It's a muscle, and you just have to build it through repetition.
I really want to stay on this specific concept for a moment, just because of its immense gravity. Never betray your own truth. I mean, think about the word betray. That is an incredibly strong word. When you bite your tongue to avoid stating an unpopular opinion, or you laugh at a joke you actually find offensive just to make others comfortable, you aren't just being polite, you are committing an act of self-betrayal. Making other people comfortable should never, ever come at the cost of your own authentic identity.
I really want you to let these words from Brené Brown sink in for a moment. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires the ultimate courage to stand alone. Just take a breath with that. If you feel alone when you are being your authentic self, you aren't doing it wrong. That feeling of standing alone, of not perfectly meshing with the crowd, that is actually a prerequisite for true connection.
And it takes the ultimate courage for a very good reason. Stepping out of that people-pleasing trap is terrifying. It is not easy, not at all. It takes immense, profound bravery to look at a room full of people, know exactly what they want you to be, and then choose to be yourself anyway. You are actively risking being misunderstood. You are risking being unliked, but you're doing it to stand firm in your truth. And honestly, that is the ultimate courage.
But here is the absolutely beautiful part of all this. What waits for you on the other side of that fear? On the other side of that exhausting chameleon illusion? It's radical self-acceptance. When you finally put down the heavy burden of managing everyone else's comfort, you experience this massive rush of freedom. You finally get to breathe. You actually get to inhabit your own life. You get to replace that exhausting hustle for approval with a deep, unshakable acceptance of exactly who you are.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I'm leaving you with a final coaching challenge for the very next time you walk into a room or join a meeting or sit down with friends. Will you choose to fit in or will you choose yourself? The next time you feel that familiar urge to morph into what others expect, I want you to remember the illusion. Have the courage to stand alone and just watch how true belonging finally begins to show up in your life.